Okay, then. So the Season 2 cinematic is out. It's very much in Ionia, and apparently it's doing Spirit Blossom again, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. First of all, because Spirit Blossom is... Spirit Blossom is... I was about to say it's not canon, except it is kind of, sort of, it is, except that, like, there's no Spirit Blossom version of Ari, right? Like, that's not canon. Like, the canon version of that particular death spirit is not Ari. Ari just embodies it for the purposes of a skin. So Spirit Blossom Ari is not canon, but it's canon that there is a Spirit Blossom spirit that does the thing that Ari does in the Spirit Blossom skin universe. So how does that, if these cinematics are supposed to be canonical, how does that interact with the idea of giving characters Spirit Blossom skins? Because that's not the narrative conceit of the Spirit Blossom universe as it has existed. But clearly that's what this cinematic is probably supposed to sell, is Spirit Blossom something or others. So, okay. I guess, let's see. I suppose we'll, I suppose we'll just find out by looking at it. Ooh, bioluminescence. Ooh, okay. So I believe... Oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's pretty. Ash? I guess. Yeah, so Spirit Blossom Ash, then, alright. Cool. That, Okay. Right. So I believe this is animated by The Line, and you can kind of tell from the way they do their line work, actually, which were also the people responsible for the True Damage Giants music video, a bunch of other things they've done, some stuff for Love, Death, and Robots. They're a very prolific animation studio. They do music videos, they do ads, they do all kinds of stuff. Kind of a studio along the lines of Fortiche in some ways, like not quite with the same sort of production philosophy and all that, but working in some of the same spaces. Riot has collaborated with them a number of times before. But let me just hang on. Let me just. The bioluminescence here is lovely. So who's the shadow in the water there? But the thing I was curious about. So is that Spirit Blossom Ash? Doesn't look like her. That's not her fucking eyebrows. Who the hell is that character? Irelia? Anyway, what I was curious about, because The Line works a lot in, like, mixed media formats. Like, they do work in all kinds of styles and genres. They are a very, very versatile studio. So I'm curious about the mix of 2D and 3D here, indeed, if any. Because we're doing the offset animation timing, right? Like you can see here, the foreground, background bits move, and we get a little bit of the light effect there, and then like here it's the hands and a bit of the water, and then the background, like the way they offset the timing, so that's a classic thing. But there's something about how that origami paper flower lotus thing is like I think it's hand animated? I'm genuinely not sure though. Cause oh wait, no, yeah, it's hand animated. It has to be. Right? Because I'm actually not sure still. Because usually the way you can tell is that 3D animation is geometrically perfect, right? If you rotate a 3D object in a piece of 3D software, then the object is perfect. Like, it is 100% consistent from every angle because it's rendered mathematically in the software. If an animator is hand drawing an object rotating in 3D space, then from frame to frame, you're gonna get imperfections. And you're gonna get inconsistencies because that's the nature of a hand drawing animation. Is like, human beings are not Xeroxes, right? Like, we're not perfect machine reproduction engines that do everything perfectly. And with that in mind, I'm looking for wobble, right? Like, I'm looking for line inconsistency from frame to frame. And I'm not 100% sure, actually, because, like, it could also be like one way to, if you're doing hand animation of an object rotating in 3D space, to sort of reduce the difficulty of that or increase, like, the perceived perfection of the object's physicality, like, for example, this fucking thing, is to rotoscope, like, use a 3D model, animate it to do the thing that you want to do, more or less, and then rotoscope over it and add, like, a little bit of sort of handcrafted expression on top of that, which might be what they're doing here. I'm reasonably convinced that Lotus is a 3D object. Like, at the very least, rotoscoped over, because the total physical perfection of that thing is just, that feels not like what it would look like if a completely human hand was the only thing animate. Like, unless, of course, like, it's also the thing, like, with modern animation software, with a lot of the tools of animation that are available to animators doing these things, there are a lot of tools that allow for, like, these things to be accomplished more easily in hand-drawn animation, but I am reasonably convinced that fucking thing must be 3D animated the way that they're rotating it. Unless they have just some fucking wizard on the animation team here. Because, like, there's some things about, like usually another way you can tell the difference between 2D and 3D is in the way that lines overlap, right? Because, again, when a human being needs to draw a geometrically perfect object with two lines that very closely overlap to the point of almost being complete tangents with each other, they'll usually just fuse them. And what I was seeing here, in some instances with the lotus flower, it felt like, especially with the leaves on the flower, that there were instances with the overlaps that feel like too geometrically perfect for a human. Like, a human being would stylize their way out of that in a way that a computer wouldn't, I think. But don't, fucking don't quote me on it. Anyway, I just needed to know if that fucking flower were 3D or not. Because the backgrounds surely aren't. And we're doing the classic... Like, I would imagine that this is all projected into a 3D scene in software. Like, that you have a 3D scene in software, and then they're placing the various layers of the thing. But, like, the little subtle bit of parallax, right, with the rocks here in the foreground... Do they actually also rotate? Is this actually... I'm trying to figure out whether these rocks in the foreground, whether they actually rotate three-dimensionally, or if it's just a lot of parallax effect. I think it's just parallax. I don't think they're 3D models, but... Like, what a gorgeous parallax, right? Like, what a gorgeous use of like, a layered classic parallax effect to create, like, a beautiful, huge landscape. And also just some fucking background painters just going absolutely nature ham with it, like really reveling in the glow and the greenery and the softness and like the lusciousness and the wetness and everything with the plants here. More parallax scrolling to really achieve that sense of depth. Nice little cut hidden with a foreground object. Here's a little thing. You see how here the petals of the flower occlude the little glow bits on the water, right? Because the flower presumably is blocking out the light that's creating it. But at the very start of the shot, aha! You see that? The flower does not occlude the glow on the water. Aha! Aha! But is that just because of the camera angle? This would be a distance from which the reflection would reach? I don't know. I thought maybe I'd caught them in a little slip up, but who knows? Hand-animated birds. I'm reasonably sure. Oh, yeah, you can see the wobble on the line work. And, like, using the sort of natural wobble of line work to show the wind moving through their feathers. By the way, that there with those... Does that look a little bit like ribs? Like it's a great serpent or something? Again, is this thing of like, if this is canon, then why is there a giant statue of Ash in her Spirit Blossom skin in Ionia? In which case, clearly this can't be story canon, so... Okay, hang on. No. You don't get to just skip over that. Okay, so we're transported into the story space. The implication here for me is that this is a statue of this Spirit Blossom entity somewhere in Ionia, who just so happens to completely coincidentally look a lot like Ash for some fucking reason. And now we switch into the realm of, like, the spiritual or the story or the whatever it is. Which is why we have this hyper-stylized background, right? Like, really sort of... almost a little bit of the same stylization you would see in, like, Mary Blair's backgrounds for Disney in, like, the 60s. I'm thinking of Cinderella Sleeping Beauty, I think actually had some stylization in the background like this. A bunch of the cinematic shorts that Mary Blair worked on. Like, Mary Blair was very fond of certain kinds of, like geometric implication of, like, a tree by simply painting, like, a blob of sort of leaf shape and then a darker... Like, these kinds of stylizations are very sort of... have a 1960s feel to them to me. Again, I wonder what the mix here is of 2D and 3D, because, like, Ash's running seems hand-animated to me. Like, I don't think this is a 3D model. That would be weird. But I'm curious about whether the background is hand-animated in the same way, because there are moments when the alignment and the directionality of, like, her running on the branches and the branches don't read completely clean, but that's fine, because it's, like, on screen for, like, a frame and a half. Oh, look at that squash and stretch. Anticipation. Yoink. Stretchy. Like the hair especially is being used elastically to really sort of like give her the launch. Like, zoosh. Oh, that's pretty. Anyway, I should probably watch the video, shouldn't I? Fully on some Tarzan shit, too. That's the other thing, like, sort of relating back to Disney, like, this, some of this in the way that it's handling, like, the camera. Oh, that's pretty. Like, the way they extend the branch into the foreground for her to catch on. Interesting. Look at the way they create the sense of rotation in the camera, right? It's not that the camera is rotating. We have these flat backgrounds that are just being projected. I'm sorry, this is just going to be this whole thing. Flat backgrounds being projected, and then like all this animation being animated over top of it, and then smear in order to indicate the swing. Back to solidity for a second with a pan, and then smear again to indicate that we're whipping back and forth. And that sort of that emulates the sense of like an actually rotating camera, while with the animation we're doing the differential timing thing, right? So everything has like a frame that it's moving on, and then in motion it just looks that's cool. That's really cool. Again, curious if the trees here are like 3D objects with just a lot of texturing on them in order to make this camera move easier, or whether they hand animated them. I'm leaning towards hand animation, but and then like she grabs the tree branch, and then the whole tree essentially becomes her arrow, which is like, that's very cool. Oh my god, look at that. Again, just like the level of stylization that's on display here, that the line is working with, is like, they've been leveling up. They really have. They've always been very, very good, but... By the way, flash warning on this thing, clearly, because we're doing some flash frames. Look at the fucking, like, the chromatic aberration and all the glow effects they push on that flash, and then, fully doing anime flash frames right here. With all of the... That's really pretty. Look at that. There's some fucking wallpapers right here. And here as well, like how long they're holding on this moment before she lets it fly. And then... Look at the way they transform it into the streak, right? Like all this physical abstraction, so that when we get into this shot and the bird doesn't have a concrete bird form, it works because we've already seen it like deforming and streaking into the whatever it is. And then just like some background animators having so much fun just painting huge volumetric, like, but also like flatly stylized, not volumetric, but flatly stylized, huge parting clouds around this thing as it like curves through the air, and then like swoop down here, restore it a little bit to the bird shape, and then yeah. That ash skin is going to be $250, isn't it? And then it becomes a little kite. Okay, kite. You little kite there. Hang on. Let me just see you. Let me see you. Hand animated? Or do they just add... See, because you can do that with 3D objects, right? Like if you have a 3D object and you need it to distort in some way, there are ways to do that, to introduce that kind of line wobble to it. But I don't think that's what they're doing, because I can see little bits of color overspill over the lines here. I think that one might be hand animated. Really? Really? Oh, that's really cool. And the translucency on it as well. Look at that. Like you can see things through. Oh, that's some gorgeous lighting effects. Like, you can create a thing like that with 3D animation effects. And there's certainly things that, like, the texturing on it, right? The way that as it flattens down into the space, you can see how much these lines alias and compress against themselves. That makes me feel like that feels like a thing that 3D animation would do to the texturing on the back of like a 3D object. And then they would have just had to apply a bunch of wobble or hand texturing to create the distortion effects on it. It could also be hand animated. Like, I genuinely don't know, because this could also be like just the animator is animating the outline of the actual physical object, and then when they project the color, the texturing onto it, it might just be that they're using like a sort of planar distortion thing to make it fit, rather than hand painting the actual coloration on it frame by frame, and that might be why some of it looks a little bit aliased and squashed here, but like, Jesus Christ. Anyway, is that Melio? That's Sinzhao, right? Like no, wait, Jarvan. It would be Jarvan with that spear shape? Question mark? Okay, let's just let it play. Or just random kids. Who knows? They might be champions. But if it's Jarvan, then, like, again, the question of canonicity, right? Hey, I recognize you, I think. Or maybe I don't. I guess the kites themselves each represent a spirit blossom spirit. And by the fuck me goddamn way, look at that. Look at that. Fucking... And they're moving, too! The artist painted, like, all this, like, crowd of revelers gathering, and there's movement in there. You didn't need to do that. They could have been completely static. No one would have seen it. And then an eye. Yeah. And, like, they're doing a lot with paper textures, right? You can see, like, all this noise that they've sort of overlapped over it with, like, to do paper texturing and to really... Nidalee? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just not gonna watch this thing as full speed ever. I'm just not gonna do it. Like, who cares about the song? I'm sure it's very pretty, but I need to see everything that's fucking happening in these frames step by step, because... Is that a 3D camera, or is that a 2D camera? I am genuinely not sure. If they just hand-animated this background, they might have, actually. Fucking hell, that's pretty. Oh, the fucking wavy water wind effect as she, like, tears open the night sky. Like, oh, come the fuck on. Oh, fully on some Okami shit right here. Oh, like, one thing I'll say for Riot, they know how to hire really good fucking people to do the best shit in the fucking universe. Just... Jesus Christ, the line. The last time I saw you, I don't think you were capable of this. Like, this little fucking camera swoop as she's like, I think it must be Nidalee, right? Running across here. And then, like, as we come up to the mountain here in the foreground, the way the camera swoops down left and the animator just handles it. Like, just goes, yeah, no, I'll just handle that. I'll just have this fucking lion leopard creature with, like all these fucking streamers, right? All of these visual effects, all of this bullshit hanging off of her, streaming off of her. Yeah, I'll just conceptualize that in 3D space for you real quick. Boom, there you go. Conceptualized in 3D space, bitch. Get spatialized. Just doing that. Just fucking casual. Just fucking casual. Just do that while rotating a lion creature. Oh my fucking god. And, like, look at the texture work also. Again, like, the reference I keep coming back to, like, obviously they're going for, like, a sort of ukiyo-e and, like inkwash East Asian design style, especially, like, with the mountains and, like, the ways that, like, they can, like, do the streaks in the clouds and, like, the lines on the mountains, like, evoking, like, East Asian art of various kinds. But then, like, stuff like this leaf pattern decoration inside of these, like, plant structures, and this, like, so much of this feels more of a kind, again, like sort of Mary Blair, but also Felix Colgrave, like the way that he handles that, almost a little bit paper cutout animation. There's definitely some, I remember seeing some Soviet animation experiments, like from like the other side of the Iron Curtain, from like the 60s, 70s, 80s, in like the Soviet bloc, had its own whole experimental animation scene that worked a lot with things like this, like this kind of shape language existed there. I don't know if they took inspiration from that, but man, there's so much going on here, man. And some interesting things, because like here, interestingly, we talked about differential animation timing, right? Interestingly, for this passage through the tunnel, as this star creature like, we get a little bit of it with the pedals, but for the most part, when Nidalee moves, the background moves as well, right? And it's the same thing when the star thing enters the picture. Everything is moving on the same timing here, which is a different technique, and it achieves a slightly different feel than what we saw previously when they were doing a lot of that differential animation timing. It achieves a different feel, like it has a slight stiffness to it in sort of its motion, because we are moving on twos, right? And you can kind of feel the mechanicalness of that without the differential animation timing to really smooth out the image, but it also has like a charm of its own. There's an analog nature to that I really like. Oh, hello. Lux is getting one, I guess. And of course, since it's Lux, we're playing with color and light. So we're doing this rotating shadow bit around her where where her shadow is perpendicular to the movement of the little light crystal star. Again, as we rotate around, and here we get a little bit of that differential animation thing, right? Like where you get the different timings of the foreground elements in the background. But it also, the fact that we're not doing differential animation timing on this bit here, that says to me that this might have all been animated conjunctively, like that this light streak going around Lux here, that might all be one animator animating the light streaks and the ribbons and the thing on the same timings, right? Because the differential animation timing, normally when you have a character interacting with some kind of visual effect, you would imagine that a VFX artist might be handling the animation of like the visual effect, and a character artist might be handling the animation of the character. It depends. Like, it's many times a character artist is also a visual effects animator, depending on the setup of the studio. But you would imagine that would be a two-person job, right? Especially when you're also including in that a lot of collaboration with like the compositor and the lighting people and the color people about managing the play of that shadow there and all of this texture. One thing that's interesting about the texture is that definitely seems to be, that feels like it should be digital, but is it? Because you're looking through here, you can see the strokes on this texturizing here is all sort of directionally left to right, but then here, all of a sudden we have this vertical directionality to the strokes, and then we have this back to this, and then here the strokes seem to be vertical. That's kind of all over the place, which is interesting, because normally when if you're just projecting a texture over the top of something, you would expect the texture to be pretty consistent, right? Maybe with some wobble on it or whatever. Of course, they could have just used like a randomizing thing where they have like 100 different paper textures with strokes on them, and then they project each one over some clipping masks or something in the thing of this. But like, I genuinely don't know. It is a clipping mask thing. I can kind of see that here. You can see how the edge of the shadow wobbles, but the texture inside, so that's not two different frames. That's the same frame. That's the same frame being clipped a little bit differently. So how are they handling that with the paper texture? Are they just using the same paper texture? Well, no, they can't be. So it is I'm sorry. I'm just in the weeds trying to figure out how they composited this. Yeah, light and dark. That's the Lux thing. I do appreciate. Again, there really is. Like, especially with all this, like, very decorativist, like, very sort of paper cut out there really is a kind of 60s aesthetic in the animation going on here. I feel like that particular era of like stylistic experimentation. Oh, hey, Shen. Let me have a look at your... See, is any of this supposed to be remotely canon whatsoever? That's my problem. Like, that's me sort of thinking in terms of, like, One Runeterra and everything's canon now, and this is a continuation of... and the blah, blah, blah. Is there a big statue of someone who looks like Ash in Ionia? That's just, oh, that's completely coincidental that this, like, legendary spirit warrior from the Spirit Blossom spirit realm looks identical to a lady who leads, like, a political faction in a war-torn nation, like, 4 billion miles. Like, is it supposed to be a canon thing of, like, Xin Zhao is actually there, or Jarvan, or whoever the fuck it's supposed to be? Who the fuck knows with the skins? They don't really care about likeness very much of the time. Because that's definitely Shen, right? Except... even his outfit seems to be looking a little bit different. I like the way they animate the fog, like the steam coming out of his cup. Because, like, they vary how quickly they animate it. Like, as the wind picks up, they animate it more quickly, like, with more frames to really... That's really nice. There's some masks we recognize. Right, because that's Xin Zhao, right? Like, that has to be Xin Zhao with that fucking haircut and the like, with the hair. Which means Xin Zhao has gone home to Ionia for Spirit Blossom Festival, having been released from his duties in Demacia to go here. Again, because I'm thinking timeline, right? Like, is this supposed to be concurrent with where the timeline... like... at the same time as Vladimir and LeBlanc are sort of plotting their invasion of Ionia, is the Spirit Blossom Festival going on? Is Xin Zhao there right now? And if he's there right now, is this before or after he was captured by Noxus and forced to fight in the fighting pits, and then became a retainer to Demacia? Like, has he been to Demacia? Because he has the Demacian colors on his spear, so I would imagine, yes, like, he kind of, like, there's some blue and gold going on with him? Or is this even supposed to take place anywhere in the timeline? Who knows? Riot might have answered these questions somewhere, but I've stopped following a lot of their social media. And also, they're not on Blue Sky yet, so I don't know. I should ask Spideraxe at some point. He knows. He knows everything. And if he doesn't know, he can find out. Whoa! Wait, who's that? Clever little move there, right? The child falls, and Zhao looks at them, and then look at the eyes, right? Those are not eyes made of wood. You can see the wobble in them, so it's like there's that sense of, like, almost like these eyes are wet, like they're real eyes. And then, very pretty. Who's that? It's not Evelyn. She's got the Oni horns. But there's Aurelia. Is that Evelyn? Feels like it should be. No, it's Morgana. I see. Again, it's like, why would there be statues in Ionia of characters who just so happen... They're supposed to be Spirit Blossom spirits, but they just so happen to look like... Honestly, that doesn't matter. Who cares? Don't think about it. Ignore it. Anyway, let's just fucking... I'm just gonna spend another hour on this, because... I like the way they use the petals as well, right? Because it's all windy, the petals are flowing, they're flying around, but then right at this moment, right, there's this moment of like, whoop, all of a sudden the wind just stops in its tracks, and then yoosh. We go into like a little bit of a Sakuga fest. Ooh. I mean, I don't know that I have so much to say about this. It's just really pretty, and I just want to look at it. Of course, I should also mention, like, I talked a little bit about aliasing, right? How with the kite, aliasing felt like maybe that could be an indication that the thing is three-dimensional. I should also say, I did download this thing in 2K resolution, which is a slightly awkward resolution. Mostly because I find if I'm going with 4K, which I wanted to, sometimes Premiere Pro has a little bit of trouble framing through things the way that I like to do this. Like, it gets a little slow sometimes, which annoys me, because they're not even big 4K files, but it still does. And the 2K resolution might also be a part of the aliasing on some parts. So I would say, like, part of the reason why I also call this, like a Sakuga fest is because it kind of has the hallmarks of the Sakuga style of animation, as I've kind of come to know it. This is something like you'll see, like, you can identify that in most anime you watch, right? Like, you can identify the moment when the animators hit the Sakuga button, right? When it's like, oh yeah, most of the time we're doing like very standard sort of like weekly TV animation, anime animation, but now here's the big fight scene, and then all of the animators just kind of go, well, fuck you, then boom, and like the motion and the movement and the activity explodes, and all of the camera angles get hyper extreme all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, and the cinematography changes, everything changes, because now we are in the Sakuga space. That's very much what's happening here, right? Like, because we get this shot of, I guess, Morgana bursting out from inside the mask, like rotating in the air, and then like the camera angle looking down on her from above as she's like running across this ghost water, whatever, jumping up into the frame, camera rotates to follow her. We get this extreme angle from below. She swoops around. Now the camera's all of a sudden like jumping down for like a frog perspective behind her frog perspective. That's what it's called in Danish, frog perspective. What's the English word? It's from bottom up. It's low. It's a low angle looking up, and then like we get Aurelia coming in here, and then the camera like again does this extreme push in on the blade itself, really following around, and then here comes Aurelia. Hold on her animation for a bit, and then right back to like extreme push into the camera with Aurelia, and then she swoops, and now the camera's flying. Right. This is Sakuga camera work. This is camera work that's very kinetic, that's very active, that's very free, that's not constrained to being stuck on the ground or being stuck, like, because most camera work in anime by necessity is very static. It kind of has to be, because you only have 2D backgrounds to work with most of the time, so you can't rotate the camera, you can't like pan or twist or like move it around. Like, you only have a two-dimensional background that you can move around and zoom into and out of. That's most of the camera work that you can do. So when we go in Sakuga camera mode, that's when we go, okay, let's emulate all of the possibilities of a 3D camera by animating the characters and animating the backgrounds and the environments as though a 3D environment is available here. And like, oh, look at these fucking flash frames, man. Also, that's a fucking cool ass Kamehameha she's firing off there. That's the Sakuga camera style, right? Now, why are Morgana and Aurelia fighting? Who the hell knows? They're probably spirits of something opposite to one another or something. More fucking wallpaper ass. Like, and you can tell, like, we're holding on this moment, like, we're slowing down the pace after all of this, like, fast-paced action. We're slowing down the pace to hold on Aurelia here, because this is a wallpaper, because this is a tableau that looks beautiful, and then zoom, like then we do the speed ramp, right? Like right back into Yush, and right back to Sakuga camera work, with characters moving dynamically through like rapidly changing environments, and the camera emulating the idea of like speeding along, tracking shots. Oh my fucking, like, and also it shouldn't go without mentioning, but like, there's so much color. There's so much there's so much. There is so much. There's just vast quantities of just color. This whole thing is just color, orgy of color. And God in heaven, there are times when I accidentally watch a Marvel thing or any kind of mainstream blockbuster movie or whatever, and the fucking digital grade ass, flat ass, boring ass, shit ass, garbage ass color grading that so much of modern cinema is shot with, and I see something like this where it's just like, no, colors are a tool that we use with creativity and joy and liberty to do whatever the fuck we want in terms of tone and aesthetic, and I am just reminded... Right, because like that's one of the things that this short is doing. It's playing with what colors do. When we are in the, as it were, real world, the real space, boom, you can see much more naturalistic, like, well, not realistic, but much more naturalistic lighting in the sense of like soft outlines and shadows and light bloom and like much more desaturated, much more varied, like much more sort of like sun bleached and pastel in many cases. Not that it's not incredibly colorful, but like more naturalistic, versus when we are in these spirit spaces, like we fully go 100% saturation and absolutely fucking everything, the deepest, darkest, blackest shadows you've ever seen in your life, and it's gorgeous, man. Who are you then? Who is that lady with the things? Because, like, initially given, like, the flower thing, right? Like, with the little petals and the things opening and blooming and these things, I was like, oh, Lilia, but that's not Lilia. And also, she already has a Spirit Blossom skin, so why would you do that? Is that a new character, then? Because the only other character I can think of that has those eyebrows is, like, Talia. And I guess we're implying a connection between Xin Zhao and her. Xin is wearing, like, a lotus petal thing that's, I guess, dedicated to whichever Spirit Blossom spirit that she's inhabiting at this point. Again, I'm trying to think in terms of, like, what the lore is supposed to be here. Yeah, Talia's the only other character with eyebrows that thick, but hers are longer, so that's not Talia, then, I guess, right? Talia wouldn't... who knows? I don't know. I should maybe check at some point. Also, shout out to the lighting animator, like, the person handling the lighting on a lot of these shots. Like, the three-dimensionality they're giving to Xin Zhao's face here. Just, like, by spilling the light down over his form and onto his collar there, that's really pretty. That's really pretty. Yeah, that's really pretty. It's just really pretty, man. Any little teasers at the very back of it? No. Okay, let me just... one more time. Because I watched this thing... this time I'm watching it through straight on. No pausing, no doing nothing. We're watching it fully. I say as I'm immediately overcome with the urge to pause and look at a detail. But I should watch this thing in full, shouldn't I, at some point? The way they use the river, like the splash into the river to indicate like the swap over from the spirit realm to the real, very good. Very, like, classic, but like using the mirror river as like a mirror between dimensions. Those birds are really good too. Just the fucking background, like fully on some Ghibli bullshit right here with the lusciousness of the nature, the way it's depicted. But then all this stylization is like, I really appreciate all this stylization that they're doing. Like, maybe they're a little overzealous with the paper textures on some of these bits, if they're not going to do, like, ink wash animation, right? But the pacing of this thing is also fantastic. We get these quiet moments in the real world, right? Where it's like we're watching these beautiful tableaus and scenes of, like, festival spaces and whatever. And then the moment we swap into the spirit realm, whoosh, that's when the pace, like, absolutely explodes. Everything is moving, everything's happening, like, everything is hyper-stylized and exploding and flying around and glowing. And then, like, once we return, we get this moment of peace and tranquility out in the real world. Like sitting here with Shen, for example, right? Like, where we just kind of chill. And the, like, it's all to follow the music, right? It follows the rhythm of, like, the verses versus, like, the high points of the chorus. And build, kaboom, and then into the explosive chorus, and, like, that's where all the action fucking happens. Like, it's just well paced. Like, the way they're handling the pacing of it, that we get these moments of explosive action and, like, wild visual stimulation, and then we break that up. Because, like, if the whole thing from start to finish had been just that, all that fucking Sakuga, it would have been way too much. It would not have been very appealing or fun to look at, because it would just have been, like, non-stop climax with no foreplay, right? And the foreplay is important. Like, the moments of peace and quiet and pacing that lead to those explosions and dramatic climax are very important, and it's a difficult thing to manage. Like, the music here helps as a guide because it naturally has those, like, the musician has also built in these moments of, like, and then rising tension and explosion, but it works so well with the narrative, right? That's another thing about making music videos like this. It's about picking music that actually works for building a music video like this around, because there are styles of music, there are kinds of music, there are ways to do music that is just all intensity all the time, and that wouldn't have worked for what this thing was trying to do. Oh, fight me in the Alps. This is pretty. Just the differential timing on the hair. This bit moves, that bit moves, and, like, using those differential timings, like, you see the way the shadows are wobbling as well to indicate almost like there's some sort of bright wavering light source in her face. And the glow on this, again, wallpaper city over here. The glow, again, this is another thing about the direction of this thing. When you're working with, you have these 3 minutes of music to work with, right? And you want to lead the audience's eye to pay attention to the things that matter. So, for example, this shot, everything is fucking green. Everything's green, blue, gray. Like, we have the petals a little bit, but the main thing of visual contrast is the bright pink flower in the middle, right? The art, if the artist had placed a whole bunch of, like, multicolored, really bright flowers all along the edge of the water and, like, petals all over the water, you wouldn't immediately have your attention caught by the flower that we're following down, right? Like, that's one of the very basic things of, like, designing the space in the backgrounds and managing the colors in the backgrounds in such a way that the audience is not distracted from looking at the thing you want them to look at, which is, like, we want to follow the flower here. You can see the same thing happening here, right? Like, we want people to pay attention to the sitting figure out here. So we have this dark space, and then we have this bright tree that sort of catches a lot of visual weight and attention in the foreground. We have the light on the thing, and then against a very dark background, we have this thing shining with light on top. Just, like, the little things of just the way that they compose these shots to lead the eye and make sure that you're paying attention where you're supposed to be. That's the other thing, right? Is when you have a thing like this, which is so full of visual stimulation, where there's so much to look at, the ability to confidently, calmly lead the audience's eye. Again, plenty of pink in the frame, but all of that pink flower stuff, that's up there, so that down here in the dark water, only the bright pink lotus flower or whatever. And like the same thing, like using focus, using like what's in focus, how the camera's panning across things. And that's even more important in scenes in spaces like this, right? Because here we have this saturated monocolored space where everything is either pink or white, right? So ash, being the only alternate colored thing in the space, stands out really nicely, and that's just good design work, man. Like, it's little things like that that are so obvious, right? You don't really need to comment on them. Obviously, yes, here we have a bright pink sky, so we have a bright blue object, like a completely opposite color tone streaking through it, that really, really catches the attention. It's very easy to follow even though these scenes are objectively really fucking chaotic, right? Because they are managing the use of color, the use of direction so well, they can do all this visual chaos without ever losing the audience's ability to follow what's happening, right? So Ash fires her hawk into the sky, boom, it turns into a kite. Okay, that's her kite. We have now created the association between Ash and this specific kite. This is her signifier, her symbol. Okay, so kites represent these spirits, which means we can move on to a shot like coming on up a little later. This one, where it's like, oh, there's Ash's kite. Oh, hey, here's two kites that seem to represent other spirits. So we're planting the idea, right? Like that we have these signifiers and symbols in the world that represent these specific characters. In this case, here we go down to Nidalee. And by the fucking way, the texturing and the painting on this statue under the water, again, this management of color, right? Because now, all over the river, we have these fucking pink petals, right? Like, we couldn't really follow the pink lotus if it was in that environment. But now the point of all of this is to frame this blue, green, teal lion head statue thing that's like all of a sudden appearing menacingly out of the water. And then boom, explosion. And again, color, right? Like, it's not just that like Nidalee is like a bright lion moving in this space, also that she's trailing all this pink through an environment which is primarily like teal, blue, white, quite cold, cool. She trails all of this pink, and that trail helps track her and like guide our eyes to follow her motion. Same thing here with like the blue and yellow trail as we move into Lux's scene following Nidalee's. It's just like, because we're doing all these huge swooping camera moves with everything moving in frame, and we're just following it. It's so easy. It's so natural. You're not confused. There's not a moment where you go, wait, wow, where the fuck? How the fuck did we get here? What happened? How did we cut from this thing to that thing? What's the through line? What's the narrative? No, it's obvious. It's clear, right? You can follow the narrative just by looking at it. You don't need it explained to you. There's no confusion. You understand that we're moving through these dreamlike spirit spaces because we go from naturalistic lighting, like the real world, which is rendered with all of this detail, with all of this lushness, with all of this like depth of field and like all of this stuff. And then we go from that, like you can tell this is a magical transition. Now we're in somewhere else, right? This is not the real world. So when we transition from this thing to that thing, it's not confusing. It's clear. It's thematically clear. It's narratively clear. It's a small thing. It doesn't even feel worth commenting on. I feel like an idiot pointing out the obvious, but sometimes it's worth doing that because that doesn't happen by accident. Like a director and like storyboard animators and like cinematographers have to think about this stuff. They have to think about how do we guide the audience to understand that when we swap from these scenes that are visually completely unrelated to each other, that have unrelated characters, completely opposite aesthetics, how do we guide the audience to understand what these changes, what these shifts mean, right? Like, how do we manage like the Kuleshov effect of relating one thing to the other by cutting between them, right? Like, Lux puts this bright light in the sky, and ahoy, that light is the sun, so she's the spirit blossom spirit of the sun, I guess, or something related to that. Cool. Now we're back in the real world. La-di-da-di-da, running around, stuff happens. Then, yush. This is the spirit that inhabits that mask, right? Okay, right, got it. and we get the fight scene. And then we swap from, like, we do a match cut, Morgana strikes a pose, big flash, boom. Oh, look at her eyes. Back out. There she is, right? Just having the ability to guide all of this and feel like it all flows naturally from one thing to another, so that it all feels like one single visual narrative that's flowing, rather than, oh, here's a scene and then we cut to a different scene and then we cut to a different scene and then we cut to a different scene. Rather, like, the difference in that, the flow, that feeling that you're being guided through this tour, through this environment, through this spiritual, through, like, this cultural thing, right? This transition, right? We get the statue of the lady who might be a new champ. I don't recognize her. New champion, like, holding up, like, the spirit blossom flower, and then we do, like, this pan. Whoop. Now we're in the spirit realm, and she's striking the same pose, so we understand, okay, that's the same character. It's little things like that. That doesn't happen automatically. There's no magic there. There's craft, right? In the same way that Xin Zhao leans down, touches the flower, she reacts, right? So we understand, oh, she reacted because he touched it, so there's a connection between them now. And then we get this cut back and forth, right? Like, because we get this close-up, it's a point-of-view camera look at her, almost, right? With, by the way, a gorgeous, like, lensing effect around here, that, like, this sort of fisheye lens effect. And she's above looking down, and then Xin Zhao is below looking up, and you get this sense of, like, oh, they looked at each other. They gained eye contact. Just the juxtaposition of these shots, creating that connection. And that it all flows, that it all feels like one continuous sort of visual poetic journey, right? That she sends out this thing, almost like a beacon, or to find someone. Like, that's almost like, that's the idea I get from this, like, because we open with this shot, right? Like, which is a complete mirror of this shot, right? Like, it's the same shot twice, just from different directions. That she sends out this thing, it also goes on this journey through the whole Spirit Blossom thing, floating down the river, until finally here at the top, like, the flower, not necessarily the same exact flower, but the visual signifier of the flower reaches someone, a connection is made, they see each other, and what does them seeing each other in this way mean? Who knows? Like, presumably she's a spirit of some kind that's related to something Xin Zhao wants within the lore of whatever the Spirit Blossom thing is going to be this year. Who knows? But it's compelling. Like, it's compelling visual storytelling. And also just, again, like, there's so much of it, it feels redundant to comment on all of it, but just the craft. Like, this simple action. Xin Zhao sees a flower, it's black for some weird reason, that's odd, and he's about to stoop down, kneel, and pick it up. It's not a simple action, not the way that he does it. There are many simpler ways to animate what he's about to do, let me tell ya, but they don't, right? Like, the way they manage, right? Like, he sees the flower, he's like halfway up one step, he sees it. Up comes one leg. You can see he's leaning a little bit of weight on the spear. Up comes one leg. He plants it. Then he tracks the spear along the ground. And as he starts to, like, you can see he sort of pulls the thing down so he can kneel. As he starts to kneel, he's leaning more weight on the spear, and so in order to support that weight, the spear gets moved backwards so that the center of gravity is more straight, so that he's, like, leaning and like holding the spear on the ground as he's leaning forward to reach down and grab it, and all of that at the same time as we have this cloak structure on him. Again, there are simpler ways to animate a cloak, right? Like, you can animate a cloak in a lot of ways where you're sort of cheating the fabric so that it's not very complex structurally or in terms of its volume. That makes it a lot easier to handle. But here we're doing, like, fully all kinds of edge lighting and like light and shadow on it to really get the volume of that cloak and his hair out, and, like, paying attention to, like, the drift and the flow of it, and the way that it drapes over the steps as he sets down and, like, folds, and the lighting people keeping track of like all of the volumes and the directionality of the light, and then he's like and little things as well. You see the god rays? You see these? Right? You see that? You see that little bit of extra light and shadow work that they're doing on the scene to try and really connect Xin Shao with the environment that he's in? Which is like, that's not naturalistic lighting necessarily. That's not necessarily how a shadow would actually be projected in this space. But it's like there's a haze in the air and he's like blocking out some of it. So you get these little god ray bits coming off of him. There's so much fucking... And it's just for a guy sitting down to touch a thing, right? It doesn't have to be that complex, but they're really fucking going for it. And that's the magic about animation. Nothing you see here is an accident. Nothing. Not a sync, not a pixel, not a movement, not a motion, not a wobble, nothing. Nothing in this frame. Nothing in any of this is an accident ever. None of it happened for any other reason except someone made a decision about it. Now, it's not always like a long, deliberative, conscious decision where you're like very like mathematically plotting out every move you're going to make. Animation is an art. Like a lot of it comes from feeling. But everything that gets put on screen gets put there because someone looked at the scene and said, that needs to be put there. Every frame of motion, every frame of animation, every lighting effect, every visual bit, like the drift of the pedals in the air and the animation timing that they're working on. Like you can see they're working on the opposite timing of how Xin is moving. All of it, everything is a decision. All of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. It's magic. It's magic. It's fucking sorcery. It's animation. All animation is a miracle. Whether it's a Ghibli movie, whether it's a Disney movie, whether it's 3D animation or 2D animation, whether it's one person making something for themselves in a bedroom or like a team of hundreds working for years on achieving like one collective vision, it's a miracle every time. There's no animation that's not miraculous. It's all miraculous. It's a miracle that human beings are capable of doing this, of coordinating so many disciplines and so much skill and so much specialization and so much knowledge of gravity and wind and the way that objects fold and the way that fabrics fold on each other, the way that skin reflects light, subsurface scattering, the way that like blurring works in a camera lens, the way that you create like connection between shots via the Kuleshov effect, like the way that you... Like, someone on the animation team has to know how to do that with water, right? Someone on the animation team has to know, how do you make water look like that? How do you manage like the wobble of the lines between light and shadow in the water to give it that really voluminous, like beautiful effect? Like, how do you animate the wobble of these little bits of like light reflection on the water to really make the water feel like wet and like the surface has like a texture and a shape to it? Someone has to know that, and someone has to do it. Someone also has to know, how does a person walk with a spear, right? Like if they're using the spear kind of as a walking stick, how do they handle their weight? How do they move? How do they handle the weight of the spear during their walk cycle as they're going? And how do they do it from this angle and this distance as they're going over a hill a little bit? Someone on the team has to know that as well. Someone on the team, a 3D animator, I think in this case, has to like figure out how to animate this lotus flower moving into this bit, occluding behind the waterfall here. And you can actually see it happening, right? You can see the occlusion happening from here to here. Someone has to make the decision about when is the lotus flower in front of this bit of water, when is it behind it, and how do we render that? Someone has to know how to do that. And know how to like composite the lotus flower so that the way that it moves through the space into this two-dimensional drawing comports with how quickly is this thing shrinking into the space, and does that feel correct relative to the apparent perspective and depth and dimensionality in this two-dimensional image to make this three-dimensional object do that so that it believably looks like it's vanishing into a vanishing point. Someone on the team has to know how to do that. Someone on the team has to know how to animate a very rigid object like this kite and the way that it wobbles in the air. Someone has to know, when we're doing these quick pans across the background, it's not just that we have these gorgeous backgrounds. Someone has to make the decision about the angles that those are painted at. Someone has to know, how do we apply motion blurring to these backgrounds to mimic the way that it would look in an actual camera move to get that three-dimensional effect? When do we ramp that motion blur down? And how do we control the speed of how the camera is moving in this scene to mimic the motion of of the kite, first of all, but also so that it's not a very janky, like stiff mechanical motion, so that it has this curve of a swoop to it, right? And it like slowly eases into looking out over this gorgeous vista. And someone had to paint those backgrounds, by the way, to support this camera shot, right? Like these backgrounds that they're panning over, someone has to paint them so that they fit with, we want to do a camera shot where we start from looking from below up high at the mountains, like with a bunch of like distortion there and a bunch of very bright light. Someone has to paint the background so that when we pan across this two-dimensional piece of image towards here, that it's contiguous, that it all feels like it flows together, but it mimics the space of a three-dimensional space. Someone has to know that on the team. There's a person on the team who has to know that. Many times, the people on the team who know how to do something, they know how to do many things, right? Like, animation is a specialist's discipline, but also a generalist's discipline. Sometimes, like, a person who knows how to do shit like this is also the person who knows how to paint a background like this. Sometimes. But the breadth of knowledge, the breadth of skill, the breadth of ability, the breadth of capacity that a team like the people at the line have to have in order to put something together, someone has to know how to paint like that and then also paint like this. At the same time, they have to know that. They have to have developed both of those skill sets to like an equal level of competence in order to make this work. It's miraculous. And this is the case for every piece of animation you've ever seen in your life. It's miraculous. It's astonishingly absurd that human beings can just figure out how to fucking do that. Could you figure out how to fucking do that? I don't think so. I couldn't figure out how to fucking do that. But a bunch of human beings together pooling their resources and their capacities, they can figure out how to fucking do that. And that's magic. I never get tired of it. Never, never, never. And this is an ad we're looking at. We're looking at an ad. We're looking at an ad for League of Legends skins, one of which is going to cost $250 fucking dollars because Riot has fully sold its soul to the gacha gods, right? It's an ad. This is an advertisement for the most commercial product on Earth, and yet, look what people can do. Look what people can put together when someone gives them the time and the space and the resources to make it happen. For an ad, I mean, I would like Riot Games to just pay the line like $400 million and say, make whatever the fuck you want. I'd like to see what would happen if they did that, but Riot won't do that, because capitalism, unfortunately, doesn't work that way, even though it should. This is why I want to become the dictator of a small but mineral-rich country, ruthlessly extract all of the wealth, and then spend all of it just telling animation studios to do whatever the fuck they want. Because I want to just see, like, what could the people who made this do if you just told them, here's an infinite bag of money, do whatever the fuck you want for 5 years and show us what you come up with? What could they do? What could they make happen? What could Fortiche make happen if you did that? Magic. Sorcery. Every fucking frame a painting? No, every fucking frame a dark incantation to some eldritch lord of the arts whose baneful blessing consumes the souls of those that produce it. It's... How do you unify this shit with that, right? They just did because of someone on the team knew how to do that. Fuck me, man. Animation is so good it makes me angry. Holy shit. Fine, I guess I'm gonna have to investigate what the Spirit Blossom lore is this time, because I don't know what it is. I don't know what the Spirit Blossom lore is. I don't know why Xin Zhao is there. I don't know why she looks like Ash. If that's how canon is it? Is any of it canon at all? Probably not, but who knows? Maybe it is, because it's all one Runeterra. Everything's canon now, except when it isn't, because that was always how it was going to turn out. But I have complaints about Riot that are for another time. For now, I didn't even talk about this bit. I didn't even really talk about this bit with the mask sort of manifesting into air. Like, we get this showdown shot of Morgana versus, like, this terrifying thing, and then Irelia's blades just cross-cutting that shit and transitioning that into, like, a glamour thing for her. And they just did it because they could, because fuck you. Nothing makes sense. Wizards live among us. Animation is so cool. I'm going to stop yapping now. I think I've said enough. Animation's so fucking cool. It's just so cool. How do you look at this and not go, this is the tightest shit I've ever seen in my life, right? Like, I understand the cynicism. I understand it. I am cynical about Riot too. I would like to personally have like a 45 minutes alone in a room with Mark Merrill and a heavy lead pipe, just to talk. I just want the pipe to be there for ambience. I just want to talk to him. I just want to chat. I just want to have a decent conversation with the man. Don't worry about it. But no matter what it was made for, whatever the commercial, crass, slightly gross purpose of it, I'm glad I got to see this thing. Even though it's an ad, even though it's... I'm glad I got to see a bunch of animators just doing this because they're capable of it. Like, the world sucks in a lot of ways, but people are still making beauty. They're making beauty whenever they find an opportunity to do it. And sometimes a shit company pays for beautiful art to be made. That's always been the reality. Like most of Renaissance art is unfortunately paid for by the Catholic Church, right? So, well, not most of Renaissance art, but most of the stuff we think of as like masterpieces of the Renaissance kind of can't escape that tension between the commercial and the artistic, but Jesus Christ, the line. Jesus Christ, like the fucking... The other stuff I've seen from the line, like, it's been good, but like this does feel like slightly a different level from them. Like, again, not that I'm like the know everything. I still have not had time to watch Love, Death, and Robots for some fucking reason. I don't know why. But the confidence and the range of styles that they're working in here is just... I really hope Riot contracts Sun Creature Studios again at some point as well. I want to see how far they've come. Because they did the previous Spirit Blossom thing, the one with Yone. That was Sun Creature Studios. And like, I would like to see Riot commission them again for one of these. Maybe not Spirit Blossom necessarily, but what the fuck has Sun Creature Studios? I'm sorry, I'm just rambling right now. I'm just... This little rotational... I didn't really comment on this either, did I? This little rotation shot of Ash, right? As she, like, draws her bow, and then the animators just kind of go, you know what? We're just going to conceptualize her in 3D space real quick. We're just going to swoop around like that. We're just going to do a rotation. Not because we need to. We could just have rotated mildly to the left. But no, we're going to do a full 360 because fuck you, that's why. Just because that's appealing and cool. And we can do a bunch of really cool foreshortening. Make the armpit perverts happy for a second. I mean... like, just the water animation on these shots in particular. Like, are they 3D? Like, did they do them in 3D software? Or were they, like... I don't know, man. Just wallpaper after wallpaper after wallpaper. Motherfuckers. I'm gonna stop now. Anyway, yeah, more of this if you want it. I've been restarting my reactions to Free Rent, by the way. They're behind the member paywall right now, which is like a 99 cents a month, so I feel like it's reasonable. If you want to see them now, you can do that, but I want to record a whole bunch more of them rather than record some and then get burned out on it and not record for like 9 months, and then I want to try and see if I can record the whole rest of the reaction to the anime, where I do a lot of this animation yapping as well, especially on Freerun. God fucking damn. So if you want to see that, remember on the channel you get early access to those things. That's my self-promotion. I have a merchandise store and a Patreon and stuff. You can find it if you want to do that. If you're still here, hello. You should drink some water, do your homework, and go to bed, maybe in that order. I don't know. You're probably procrastinating on something, so stop doing that and go do what you're supposed to do instead of sitting here with me just marveling at fucking magic.